Hello everyone, I'm Ramana Abhishek, leading product marketing at Kore.ai, and with me today is Murali Raghuram, our Senior Vice President of Products. We are excited to introduce something we believe will redefine how enterprises think of process automation. Kore.ai, AI for process. Now, let me be clear. This isn't just another platform upgrade or a shiny AI feature bolted on top of RPA. This is our point of view on where the world of process automation is headed. Now, let me start with a simple question. How many different bots, scripts, or agents are running across your enterprise today? Not for a count, but just pause and consider. And do these agents really talk to each other and work in tandem to execute a process or a workforce or any specific workflow automation? Well, let's see. This is what an enterprise tech stack looks like today. Layers upon layers of infrastructure, apps, integrations, channels. But here is the reality. Across all of this, your AI agents are disconnected. Now, picture this: CRM, ERP, SOR, your ITSM, customer service platforms, you name it. Every platform has agents of their own today. And now, if we are to think about an employee onboarding process, for example, we're talking about a process across four different platforms: one for provisioning laptops, one for emails and communications, one for maintaining employee records, and one for payroll setup, for example, right? Now, to complete onboarding, these agents must hand off to each other via custom connectors or any custom scripts. Now, any change in a process like this, or a new approval step, or a different tool that comes in for expense management, or any additional input that needs to be given. Now, all of this requires reconfiguring all these multiple agents and the handoffs between them. Now, for a large enterprise, imagine this across hundreds of processes across all your current functions. And that's the scale of problem we are talking about. And that's where automation is breaking under its own weight. Now, with agent sprawl, a tangled web of scripts and agents, each living on their own different platforms. Document bots here, chat bots there, approval workflows somewhere else. Each one does its own job in isolation, but together they create a sprawl. Now, business leaders are left stitching together a relay race between 10 different platforms just to get one process completed. So that's the reality today there, right? So, and beneath all of this, there lies a brittle foundation. Now, most automations so far have been built on rule-based RPAs, right? Rigid deterministic systems, when automation meant following rules. And now the world is moving towards intelligent autonomous agents, which generally do not operate on rules at all, right? So each attempt to modernize seems to add another layer of complexity rather than stripping it away. Now, there is the cost of speaking machine as well, right? For years, we've accepted that automation requires learning new languages, mastering specialized interfaces, and thinking like programmers. Like Murli says, we've built an entire industry around the idea that humans should adopt or how machines prefer to receive instructions. So that's the reality, and that's the problem today, right? Agent sprawl, brittle foundations, and heavy costs of upgrades, updates, or changes. Now, the question is, how do we move forward from here? To unpack that and share our vision for what comes next, I'll hand it over to Murli.
Thanks, Ramana. As Ramana was pointing out, in terms of what's been happening in the industry, there's been a significant amount of process automation that's been happening for almost 3-4 decades now, if you think about it. And at every stage, you've had various different type of technology that's come in and tried to make business better, optimize the operations, and really understand what's happening within the operations and give a perspective to the business users to figure out how they can make their entire business models and the value chain better. But they were all stuck with certain kind of rigidness, because all of these programming technologies that were there, they were built to be designed with rules at the time of design itself. if things changed, you had to break it open, do the modifications, and bring it back up so that it can adapt to the new changes. A policy change there, a business rule that you've implemented with your own organization, the way your customers or vendors' web interfaces work. Each of these changes required you to go and open up and change things within your organizational technologies. Um, but what we have seen now is a complete evolution of how things work. With the latest AI technologies, we don't have to think about rigidness anymore. We can start providing the cognitive thinking ability to the models and enabling them to make decisions at the time of run and trying to figure out how they have to adapt to what's happening instead of you defining everything while you're designing the processes or technologies in play. But the challenge is, as people have started experimenting with this new technology, and that's experimentation has been happening for the last couple of years, we see that there is as Ramana called it, agent sprawl. If you think about it, agent, LLM, all of that being adopted in different parts of the organization substantially. And every individual teams within the organization have started experimenting with them. They've started seeing the results. But organization as a whole have to now step in and say, hey, I can't let this being used by their own whims and fancies across the organization. If you have to take it from beyond a simple prototype to a production ready system, then we have to have some kind of overall governance structure that enables us a full value chain from an idea to development and then post-production monitoring. So the siloed monitoring that's happening with everybody right now, that has to stop. And an organization wants to take care of this and have a complete control plane about exactly what's happening across the agents and across the models in your organization. Now, we also know, based on our experience of working with the enterprises for the last decade or so, that every enterprise already have system and processes at play. Anything new that comes in, typically the expectation is that you rip off what you have and replace it with a new. But our belief is that new has to coexist with what's already there within the organization. This is the only way you can scale. This is the only way you can get to market faster. Rip and replace is probably because the old technologies could not adapt, and the newer capabilities that we've been building now can come and sit with what you already have, interact with what you already have, and essentially coexist and grow with your current technologies to make sure that it is adding on to already the capabilities that you have within your current tech stack and enhancing that rather than expecting you to rip and replace. And the final objective for us has been that everything we've been focusing on within the organization, what we've been seeing also within the market, is the entire aspect of what's been built has been focused with the IT and the technology team as the core persona for using it. That means that you have to build an agent. That means you have to build some kind of code stack. That means you have to connect the data systems with APIs. So there's a lot of technology lingo and also a significant amount of technology expertise that would be necessary to make this happen. We realized that now there is a real opportunity for us to enable the business users also have the ability to build their own processes and take their existing systems and processes and combine them to create value very, very quickly without having to go to the IT teams for very, very simple changes that they used to do historically. So they can, as the business adapts, as the business changes, adapt to those changing equations, whether it is policy changes, whether it is government policy changes, internal policy changes, or even the business rule changes, they can go and tweak and update those. Not only that, historically what has happened is you had an island of automations happen within your organization. You had automations wherever you had structured data that you can automate, but there was significant amount of work left between these systems that was catered through spreadsheets and Word documents and PowerPoints. Today, with the capability of the technology, you can enable the business users to automate those pieces that would not require IT teams' effort because it's not substantial amount of automation that you need to go through for months and years, but still can add significant amount of value addition for the business users, where they can take a particular dashboard they had created with Excel and convert that into a simple process automation using agentic capabilities and get the kind of productivity they could have never dreamt of before. And that's where our focus has been. And we believe that this entire reimagining of what we've been thinking about, how the process automation construct that's been there in the industry for such a long time, which is business gives an idea, then there is a bunch of folks who actually understand the requirement, goes to IT, the development happens, then the business validate those assumptions. Obviously, they have to do a lot of compromises because it's a one size fits all solution that has to work across your entire organization, and then they're stuck with it. If there is a change that's necessary, they go through the change request process, and then IT gets involved again, and you have to do the updates. Moving away from there, and the IT doing the heavy lifting, what they do, and the business being able to then adapt to the changing business conditions and really modify what they need to do without having to go through this entire life cycle all over again. So after this, I just want to give you a glimpse of what we've been thinking about in terms of the capabilities of what the product has and what we're also working on over the next couple of months and next couple of quarters. So let's get into that. Everything we built within Core as an ecosystem starts with the platform as the base. So the platform capabilities are plenty. We have discussed this in various different conversations. I'll touch upon a few of them right now. On top of that sits the work, what we call the three verticals that we go to market with. You have a work, you have a process, and you have a service. Obviously, the focus area for us is you have a process. But before we get there, I think there are a couple of fundamentals that we need to understand because we're thinking about agentic capabilities. The foundational piece for all of this is the models. Models enable you to kind of optimize the kind of thinking that you do, the kind of process you define, the autonomous capabilities you actually provide to the process, so on and so forth. So I want to very briefly touch upon the model hub that we've been focusing on for a while now, which enables you to kind of bring in various different type of models, whether it is commercial models available directly with the commercial provider like Anthropic or OpenAI, or via Bedrock or Azure. So you can configure those right here. We also enable you to bring open source models. These open source models can be available, something that you already have, because you fine tune that, you can import that, or you can directly connect to Hugging Face and import any of the models that's available in the Hugging Face and bring that in and host it on our system. And that will be something that you can do so that you can use the open source models wherever is appropriate. And then we also give you the ability for you to fine tune the models. Now, this becomes the foundation. We'll not go into the details of the Model Studio right now, but the point is the Model Studio provides you the foundation to actually bring in various different type of models and have that available for you to start within the product. Now, post that, the next important piece is the Prompt Studio. The Prompt Studio is where you enable the users who are using the product to build comprehensive prompts. Now, we know as we go along and start thinking about agentic capabilities, historical documentation, which used to call specs or requirements, now really become prompts. That's the way you communicate with the models, and that's the way you communicate with agents, and they become the foundational piece upon which you actually build them. So it's very important that you get the prompts right. And we provide you various different kind of tools for you to get the prompt right. You can, once you come in, one of the things we do is enable you to compare a given particular prompt against various different models, see how they are performing. We also enable you to generate prompts using different models so that you don't have to worry about making sure the prompt is written precisely. You can provide the basic construct, and we can use the models behind the scenes to expand your prompts to ensure that they're able to work with the models of your choice. We also provide you a library of prompts based on our experience of working with various different kind of solutions and various different examples. We have constructed about 70 plus different prompts that are out of the box, pretty elaborate and comprehensive, that you can start using directly from the marketplace and then build on top of it. And the thing we have realized is over a period of time working with the prompts, that prompts, because they become the center of what you do in the agentic applications and process applications, it's important that you not only experiment with various different models and find the right prompt, but also create a complete life cycle around it. That means you can version, commit them. Every time you actually create a prompt, you can commit them, then you create a different version. Each of these versions are available for you to use that. We create an automatic API behind the scenes And those APIs will be available with an endpoint, and they can always say, okay, this is the version I want to actually get the information from. And when you trigger that API with the version number, you're guaranteed to get the version number. So we've created an entire lifecycle around the prompts. Now, that said, I want to get to the most important part, which is about how do you construct workflows. So once you go in into the workflows, you will have various different workflows available. You can go to each one of these workflows. And what we have done is we've enabled the users to build deterministic systems and then slowly and steadily move from deterministic systems to autonomous systems. So once we have a workflow builder, I'll talk about what these capabilities are in a second, but let's talk about what the workflow itself can do. Once you go into the workflow, the typical processes in most enterprises have step A, step B, step C, and typically they are executed the same way multiple times. So let's take a simple example of maybe an insurance claim. If you think about an insurance claim, there is a claim request that comes from a customer. Then you validate the claim request. You probably do some kind of an adjudication. You may do an investigation. And finally, you may decide to do a payment. Now, depending on the type of policy you have, certain insurance companies may say, okay, if it's under a certain threshold, I will directly do a payment. I don't have to go through the process of investigation or adjudication per se. So I may have various different rules depending on where your organization is. So one of the things that happens with enterprises really is that you would have predefined set of steps and you don't want to execute the process the same way. And I was talking about the example of the auto insurance. And historically, as I said, that if you have a certain set of decisions to make, if you want to do an auto payment based on a certain number, now those are either designed in the process, in the technology when you're designing the technology itself, because you were gathered that requirements, or you may have some kind of a rules engine. Again, that's a traditional way of doing it. When it comes to the agentic way of doing it, now we can enable the agents to understand the context of what's happening with that particular process in real time, based on a particular customer, based on their history, based on the rules, the regulations you may have, based on the governance and the regulations that you have from the government, and then say, hey, this particular insurance policy claim can be auto-paid or would require a human reviewer to confirm that it's going to be can be auto-paid, or no, this can't be auto-paid because there are some nuances here, even though it's below the threshold that we've talked about, but it would have to go through the process of education. That amount of decision making can now be given to the model and the agents themselves. So what you're trying to do with this capability is that you can start building the process that you'd want step by step and say it's going to be completely deterministic to begin with, but slowly and steadily you then move from complete determinism to semi-autonomous capabilities. What I mean by that is you have the ability for you to insert various different type of nodes, and these are all AI nodes. A simple AI node could be that given a particular thing, give me a summary. That's not complicated. It will do, and there is not a lot of decision making in that particular process. But the moment you give this particular node a bunch of tools to work with, and these tools can be your rules, these tools can be information that is stored in your policy system. Once you give it this particular set of tools to this model and this agentic node, it can then dynamically, depending on the request of that particular claim, can use those tools and make a determinism of saying what I should do next. And that is where you can move from completely deterministic steps to semi-autonomous capability. Obviously, we have the agentic platform where you go from semi-autonomous to completely autonomous. But we know in most of the business processes, you do want the folks involved in the process, the process owners, the business owners would want to have control. This is where you would introduce the human in the loop construct, where you say, okay, I will execute these many steps, but at some point in time, I would want to say, stop here, give me the information of what you have done so far. Let me take a look at it, and then I'll make a decision whether I want you to continue with what you have done, or I will do some edits so that you can use that as a part of the information and continue this. So let me actually walk you through what this particular flow itself does so you get an understanding. So what this flow is doing is, let's imagine that you are one of the representatives who work with Marriott or some kind of a hotel chain like that. If an information comes in about a particular request of availability of your conference room, etc. So there is a bunch of pieces that needs to happen. An email comes in with a request, and then you have to go back, extract out certain pieces of information, understand what the email is about, collect all of these pieces of information with various different systems you currently have, compose an email and say, okay, we have availability, we do not have availability. If we do, what is the number of people you can accommodate? What is the price? So on and so forth. Now, instead of having a common predefined set of template as responses, what this flow does is we have a start node. In the start node, you can actually define a trigger. What the trigger does is whenever you get a particular new email, and that's what we have done here, when the new email comes in from this particular individual, then you start this particular process. Automatically, this process begins. Then it goes to the process. Next step is basically breaking down that particular email. It's using the model to understand what's happening, qualifying the email. Then it is basically understanding the structure of what the request was. It is doing some modifications with a simple function. Then it is basically saying, I've done all of this. I have composed an email. And this is where I want you to go back and help me review this and say, up, thumbs down, so I can continue. So the moment you put in a human in the loop, you can then say where you want to send this information to. You can send it to everybody in the account, or you can send it to specific users. So in most enterprises, when they are working on multiple processes, typically there's a concept of group inbox, and that's available so that people in the same group can actually look at the task that's coming in and work on that. We provide a similar kind of an experience where you say, if you send it to everyone, it goes to the group inbox. If you send it to specific users as well, it goes in the group inbox where whoever these particular users will have access to that. And whoever picks that particular task first, the task will move into their particular inbox, and then it'll move away from the group box. This will help them look into what's happening. So, and then you can respond. The person who's reviewing will have complete access to everything that's happened before, and they will be able to take a look at every step of the way in terms of process, what has happened. If there was an agent, what did the agent do? What kind of input went in? What kind of output came in? And they can decide if they want to approve it or not. And once they approve it, the rest of the information continues. In this particular scenario, we have a Gmail integration where once they approve, the Gmail gets connected and the email is sent out to the users. So this entire construct has multiple different type of nodes. As I said, AI node already available. We have multiple integration nodes available, and the integration node gives you access to 200 plus integrations that's available. Each of these can either have actions or triggers. You can directly use them and start putting them as part of your workflow, as we have used Gmail here. API node gives you access to connecting to your external systems. Then we have the doc search node, which is, so we have a product within a core family called Search.ai, which is an entire retrieval augmented generation capability. Doc search node gives you the ability for you to connect to that, where you can upload various different type of documents you currently have within your organization. This can be your policies. This can be your knowledge repository that can be embedded there. And that piece of information can be connected here. Whenever a particular request comes in, it'll go into that collection, understand what's happening in those documents, gets the information so you can process that with the rest of the flow. Human in the loop, we talked about that. And then we have this conditional logic, which lets you have the if else. If you want to trigger out a particular set of flows saying, if this particular thing happens, go through this route. If other thing happens, go through another route. Another important node that we have is the loop node. So let's say, for example, you have a bunch of documents that come in and you want to process all of them. A classic example of that would be invoices. If you get a bunch of invoices, you want to process each of the invoices, you can put in the loop node and say, every invoice that is in this particular request or in this folder within G Drive or within Dropbox or within your Teams inbox, process them one by one, and you have the entire flow that is associated with that. So loop enables you to repeat the same process multiple times until a certain set of actions are completed. So all of this gives you superpowers to kind of construct the existing processes what you have and slowly and steadily expand that from determinism to semi-autonomous and eventually completely autonomous capabilities. And just to finish off, there are a few important things we're working on. One of the key things we're focusing on right now is browser automation, which enables you to kind of do the repeated stuff that you've been working on in browser or any kind of websites and bring that as part of agentic capabilities in the workflows as well. A classic example would be you may go into various different vendor websites to download an invoice, or you may be filling up forms in different applications, and you don't want to kind of do, instead of doing that repeatedly manually, you want to bring that as part of the process automation within the agentic capabilities that we have. So process automation is something that we're working on, and that should be part of the platform very soon. Now, we already have certain aspects of document intelligence. So, for example, you will be able to do OCR capabilities. You'll be able to transform information from a PDF and get a structured output. But eventually, we want to expand that so you're able to do things like understanding the sentiment, extracting the contextual information, do document transformation, so on and so forth. That is typically part of most the heavy lifting that happens within the enterprises. So, for example, if you think about KYC in a bank, a different type of information comes in about the ID information from various different customers. Some come as PDFs, some come as images. You want to extract those, convert that into some kind of a structured data, and push that to your data systems so that the rest of the downstream activities can begin. So all of that is something you can do as part of the document intelligence. Most of the features is available today, and we're extending that with significant amount of capabilities very, very soon. Now, there is a lot of innovation happening within our organization. We've been focusing on understanding how the world is evolving as and when the agentic capabilities comes into play. We had seen significant amount of experiments happening over the last couple of years, and slowly and steadily, we are seeing the enterprise start to move with some of these experiments into production. Based on everything we have done over the last couple of years, we've been learning significantly, not only about what kind of capabilities the enterprises need, but also how the market is evolving and the technologies are evolving. And we have been focusing on bringing in a few certain capabilities to our products and to our customers. One of the most important piece that we're working on is the control plane. Now, as we started very early, as Ramana talked about in terms of the agent sprawl earlier, and as I alluded to as well, in terms of the necessity of organizations to have control of exactly what's happening within their enterprises when agents and human employees start working together. Now, agent control plane is our focus area for that, where not only will you be able to see what's happening, how many agents you have, what are they doing, every step of their execution, what is the cost, so on and so forth. But the way we think about this is the AI employees are similar to human employees in the sense that they are given a set of tasks and they are supposed to execute on that. So you need to have an overview of how they're performing, what they're trying to do, and then if they're succeeding in what they've been asked to do. If not, you have to retrain them, think about a different way of finding a different way of making sure that they work, changing the model if necessary, changing the prompt if necessary, or changing the entire agentic system. Now, not only that, when you start thinking about an organization, you will start thinking about how are they working with your governance structures, with your policies. Are they applying the policies you ask them to apply? Are they breaking them? So you need to have a point of view of saying, every time something goes wrong within this entire agentic ecosystem you have in your organization, you need to be alerted if some of these agents break their protocol. And the entire agent control plane, our focus is on one side, you have a complete overview and observability of what the agents themselves are doing. And the other side, you have a business perspective of saying, what's happening? Are they providing the performance you're looking for? Are they providing the ROI you're looking for? Then also, are they adhering to the policies you've defined? Are they adhering to the guardrails you've defined? And if they break, you get to know that in real time so you can course correct it if necessary. The second aspect, what we are thinking about is everything you saw today in the demo was the way you would build how we were always been building. But we were moving away from that to create a brand new experience where the business users can start talking to and building the agentic flows like the way they probably write their documents today. If you think about most of the process owners have their own set of documents that explains how each of these processes work, right? Think about this as your operating manual that they will be using. And typically that's given out to the new employees who actually come in, probably used by folks within the organization as well. And we want to enable them to use the same kind of construct of converting those operating manuals automatically into agentic systems. So the natural language conversations that you typically have with the likes of ChatGPT or any other model today, we want to bring that to the business owners so they're able to convert whatever they think about their operating manual, how they work, into agent systems. And there is a significant amount of R&D and innovation that we are throwing on that particular piece right now. Then we talked about the interoperability. We are very strongly working on every kind of protocol that's coming out. We had our own protocol for agents, but we spent significant amount of time working with MCPs and now A2A, which is the Google protocol, which enables us to interact with various different type of agents, whether it is agents built on a platform or agents built using any other framework. As long as they communicate with the protocol, we'll be able to work and interact with them. So if you have an existing agent set that's already been built, our control plane and as well as our agentic systems will be able to communicate with them, understand what's happening, and provide an overview, and also interact with them to handshake and execute what our agents have to do, along with handing off whatever those agents are able to do. And finally, a couple of other things, right? The intelligence layer is very critical. This kind of stems from the control plane as well. But most importantly, we want the agents and the entire processes to learn as they go along. If some human review comes in, if things change, if people who are actually looking at the processes provide some kind of a feedback, we want the agents to understand those feedback and make that as part of their memory, so that next time they will try to course correct if such situation comes, even before the human review needs to happen. Now, of course, wherever you have defined the human review needs to happen, it will be sent to them, but the agents can learn and heal themselves. This is very important when we start talking about browser automation. Now, traditionally, if you think about the RPAs, they were built as predefined set of bots with certain set of rules. Now, if anything in your entire process changed even a little, let's say the button changed from login to sign in, the bots failed, so you had to go back and reconfigure the bots to make sure they succeed. Now, this is where intelligence layer and most importantly, what we call self-healing comes into play. We want the traditional approach of determinism that is still required in the enterprises as much as we can. Yet, whenever the deterministic flows fail, we want the agentic control to come over and see if they can heal the determinism and provide an upgraded script, provide an upgraded experience to go back and say, okay, I know the login changed to sign in, but it is still the same concept. I should be able to continue with that entire process without having to break and asking them to update the core of what I do, but I can heal myself and execute it. That's where the memory, that's where the self-healing capability, the agenting comes into play. And we are again doing a significant amount of R&D on that. And finally, based on our experience of working with various different customers, based on our experience of using all of these systems internally, we've realized that there are a lot of repetitive steps that come in. And we start to focus on building a significant amount of a predefined set of agents in the marketplace, which can become a starting point for our customers to start building upon. Obviously, every customer is nuanced. Every customer has their own set of processes, their own set of policies, and they would want to customize this. But this accelerates the entire process of saying, well, if it's an invoice process, we know a lot of different stuff that invoice processes go through. So here is a template that you can begin with that gives you probably 30 to 50% of your effort. And then you can build on top of that to accelerate time to market substantially. So these are the areas where we are significantly working on at this moment. And we hope to deliver sprint after sprint, quarter after quarter, significant amount of value via both process AI for process as well as the platform. Over to you, Ramana.
This is great, Murli. Thank you so much. The biggest takeaway is that the real opportunity isn't in building more powerful automation tools, right? It's about the actual business outcomes, like enabling business users and developers to rapidly compose and adapt workflows through a natural language process design interface. It's about ensuring governance and control at scale with centralized AI agent orchestration and visibility across all the business process automation efforts. And it's about building an adaptive system that makes each subsequent automation more intelligent than the before one with self-learning AI agents, right? So to all our audience, thank you so much for joining in. To stay ahead of what's next in enterprise AI and automations, I invite you to join AI Pulse, our quarterly executive briefing. In one place, you will get the quarter's key AI trends, governance insights, and 20 plus on demand sessions with real business use cases. Uh, Hit us up if you'd like to see how AI for process can immediately be leveraged in your enterprise. Thank you so much.